Last week, the president and a bipartisan group of senators announced a historic infrastructure deal that would put Americans back to work with the biggest investments in our roads and bridges since the creation of the interstate highway system, connect every American to broadband, make unprecedented strides in climate and clean energy leadership, eliminate all lead drinking water pipes for the biggest investment in clean drinking water in our history, and make the biggest investment in rail since the creation of Amtrak. And no surprise, there is a lot of interest and excitement out there. The National Governors Association, as well as individual governors on both sides of the aisle, like Gretchen Whitmer and Charlie Baker, have come out in support. The U.S. Conference of Mayors, the AFL-CIO, the United Steelworkers and IBEW, the American Society of Civil Engineers, numerous tribal communities, the Business Roundtable, the Rural Broadband Association, the National Association of Counties, and many others. The president will travel to Wisconsin tomorrow to keep actively making the case for this agreement and getting it over the finish line. And he's also going to continue to make the case for his American Families Plan, which we're also fighting to pass through the two-path approach that we've been discussing with all of you. Also, wanted to note for all of you that today, thanks to the president's commitment to playing a leading role in ending the pandemic everywhere, 2 million doses of the Pfizer vaccine will begin to ship to Peru from the United States, and 2.5 million doses of the Moderna vaccine will ship to Pakistan. Over the weekend, we announced we are sending 1.5 million doses of Moderna to Honduras, and over this week, we'll be able to announce more places that the United States will be sending our doses. Finally, I wanted to make sure that you all saw that today, Education Secretary Miguel Cardona announced the release of nearly $4 billion in funding to the Puerto Rico Department of Education, including $2 billion from the American Rescue Plan to help the island's continued recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. Secretary Cardona is in Puerto Rico today, meeting with students, government officials, and education leaders. Josh, why don't you kick us off?
Great, thanks, Jen. Senator McConnell today said that President Biden should tell Speaker Pelosi and Leader Schumer to de-link the bipartisan infrastructure bill from any reconciliation measures. Does President Biden intend to tell congressional leaders what to do on this matter?
Well, first, let me just reiterate, the president looks forward to signing each bill. He's long supported the two-track approach, and his view is that the American people are most interested in what we're going to do to deliver for them, how we're going to rebuild their roads and their railways and their bridges, how we're going to make sure they have access to broadband, that we're eliminating lead from drinking water. That's where his focus will continue to be. The case he'll make when he's in Wisconsin tomorrow. He will, of course, work very closely with the leaders in Congress, Leader Schumer, Speaker Pelosi. I know Leader Schumer has noted that he plans to bring up both the infrastructure bill and reconciliation in July, but he'll continue to work closely with them and other members. Go ahead.
And then secondly, Senator Murphy of Connecticut says he's worried about how the administration used Constitution's Article 2 authority for the workmen strikes in Iraq and Syria. Can you explain the administration's view on Article 2 and kind of how it's thinking about that matter?
Sure. Well, first let me say, as a matter of domestic law, the president took this action, the airstrikes that were announced yesterday by the Department of Defense, pursuant to Article 2 authority to defend U.S. personnel. The targeted strikes were directed at facilities used by Iran-backed militias involved in these ongoing attacks for purposes including weapons storage, command, logistics, and unmanned aerial vehicle operations. So Article 2, the self-defense, the defense of the United States and our interests is our domestic justification for these strikes announced yesterday. Go ahead.
Just to follow up on that, so has President Biden been in touch with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi or Leader Schumer following his clarification that he issued over the weekend?
You're not talking about the airstrikes, you're talking about infrastructure.
Yeah.
I was like, we have been in touch with a range of Democrats and Republicans, including leaders of both of the Democratic Party in both houses, I should say, about the path forward, certainly.
Pelosi kind of drew a really hard line on this. I mean, she just said flat out, we will not take up the bill in the House until the Senate passes the bipartisan bill and a reconciliation bill. So does the White House feel like they need to get Pelosi on board with this approach that President Biden is taking?
Look, I think the most effective role, most impactful role, I should say, that the president thinks he can play. And I think it's safe to say that leaders in Congress, Speaker Pelosi, Senator Leader Schumer, and including Republicans who supported this infrastructure bill, want the president to play, is to make the case to the American people, to the public, about how officials are working together to deliver for them. And that's exactly what he's going to do tomorrow. That's exactly where his focus will be. And certainly we'll work in close coordination with leaders in Congress, but it's up to them to determine the sequencing of the legislation. Go ahead.
Florida, does the president plan to go to Florida? Has he spoken to any of the victims' families so far?
Well, let me first give you just a little bit of an update on what we have been doing over the last several days. As you know, because we issued a readout yesterday, the president sent his FEMA administrator down to Florida, who had a meeting with Governor DeSantis and others while he was in Florida. The president spoke to him and received a briefing afterwards. In addition, we have more than 50 personnel on the ground coordinating closely with state and local officials and providing assistance. FEMA has deployed an incident management assistance team, as well as building science experts, structural engineers, and geotechnical experts to support search and rescue operations, and a mobile command center. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is also being mission assigned to provide technical assistance for debris removal, and 2 FEMA-supported search and rescue teams are involved in the response to the devastating incident, and additional FEMA National Urban Search and Rescue System teams are on alert to support personnel already on the ground. In addition, last item, FEMA is coordinating with the state to support the opening of a family assistance center and is providing communication support to ensure information is available. In terms of a visit by the president, we always assess, we always want to ensure that we're not pulling from local resources. We don't want to draw resources that are needed in the ongoing search and rescue operations and efforts. We will remain in close contact with officials on the ground, and certainly if there's a trip to preview or announce to all of you, I will be ready to do that. Go ahead, Major.
The statement the president released Saturday, what was the need for that? And did the president earlier miscommunicate, or did Senate Republicans simply misunderstand on the infrastructure deal?
Well, I will say, Major, that I think that the statement was quite lengthy and quite detailed in the president's name, and the president's voice. And a couple of the points he made in there quite clearly were that when last week, when he had the press conference, as you all know, he he indicated he would refuse to sign the infrastructure bill if it was sent to him without his American Families Plan and other priorities, including clean energy. That statement upset some Republicans who did not see the 2 plans as linked, as you all know, who are also hoping, as you all know, to defeat the Families Plan and do not want to see their support for the infrastructure plan as aiding passage of the Families Plan. As was noted in his statement, he left the impression that he was issuing a veto threat on the very plan that he had just agreed to, which was not his intent. And he wanted to make clear that was not his intent. And in the statement, he also reiterated his intention to move forward with advocating for, using the bully pulpit, making phone calls, working his heart out to get the American Families Plan through. And his view is that you can do both and should be able to do both. And there can be disagreement even as he's pursuing the American Families Plan.
So he miscommunicated.
I think he made pretty clear, Major, in his statement this weekend that we issued this weekend, that he did not send that was not the message he intended to send.
And you have said a couple of times the president's going to tell the country what's in it, but even those who have supported it say we'd like to know more about it. I mean, when are the details going to be really available for those, for example, who live in Flint, Michigan, or any other city in America that does have a lead pipe situation, to know exactly what's going to be spent, when it's going to be spent, and the core legislative language that, when I used to cover Senator Biden, he would be very much focused on?
Well, what would you like to know? Settle in. I will share every detail that anyone would like to know about the package. But you're right, Major. As you know, it needs to now be written. That is a key component. As the president said also, and as we have conveyed from here, there is work ahead. And that is the important work ahead, is writing this legislation, moving it across the finish line. I will say, just because you asked me about the specific component of the package, just to give a little bit more detail there, it will put Americans to work replacing 100% of our nation's lead water pipes, so that every single American child at home or in school can turn on the faucet and drink clean water. And right now, as you may or may not know, Up to 10 million homes and 400,000 schools and childcare centers get their water from lead pipes and service lines. So that is what it will aim to address in that specific category.
Is that over the 8-year life of the bill, or is that on a 2-year thing? Do you have any determination of a timeline on that?
It's an excellent question. The details are very important here. It needs to all be written into the final legislation of the bill. But the president is clearly eager to get that done as quickly as possible. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. Just another question about infrastructure. You're saying that the president was trying to clear up what he meant on Thursday and that it was not his intention to issue a veto threat. He said, if they don't come, the two bills together, I'm not signing. Real simple. So did he change his mind or did he make a mistake?
I will say, Peter, I know that we're quite focused sometimes on process in here. I understand that. The process of a bill becoming a law is important, but the president intends to sign both pieces of legislation into law. He is eager to do that, looking forward to do that. As you know, they are both moving forward on dual tracks in Congress. The leaders in Congress are ensuring that is happening.
Okay. Something one of the advisors said this weekend, Cedric Richmond, he said, Republicans defunded the police by not supporting the American Rescue Plan. But how is it that that is an argument to be made when the president never mentioned needing money for police to stop a crime wave when he was selling the American Rescue Plan?
Well, the president did mention that the American Rescue Plan, the state and local funding, something that was supported by the president, a lot of Democrats who supported and voted for the bill, could help ensure local cops were kept on the beat in communities across the country. As you know, didn't receive a single Republican vote. That funding has been used to keep cops on the beat.
But at the time, that was sold as these local police departments might have a pandemic-related budget shortfall, not we need to keep cops on the beat because there's a crime wave.
I think that any local department would argue that keeping cops on the beat to keep communities safe when they had to, because of budget shortfalls, fire police is something that helped them address crime in their local communities.
For those in the local communities, the White House's argument was the American Rescue Plan is going to be $1,400 checks. It's going to be vaccines, vaccinators. It's going to put us on the path to beating the virus, not...
It did those things as well. It was a pretty good bill and piece of legislation.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Just one more. This weekend, Gwen Berry, who hopes to represent the United States as an Olympian on the hammer throwing events, won a bronze medal at the trials, and then she turned her back on the flag while the anthem played. Does President Biden think that is appropriate behavior for someone who hopes to represent Team USA?
Well, Peter, I haven't spoken to the president specifically about this, but I know he's incredibly proud to be an American and has great respect for the anthem and all that it represents, especially for our men and women serving in uniform all around the world. He would also say, of course, that part of that pride in our country means recognizing there are moments where we are, as a country, haven't lived up to our highest ideals. And it means respecting the right of people granted to them in the Constitution to peacefully protest. Go ahead.
I want to switch gears real quickly on the COVID crisis.
Sure.
So you're planning a really large party at the White House on the 4th
Yes.
of July.
A party for
1,000 people.
frontline workers and men and women who served our country, yes.
And also the National Mall will be open, but we are getting reports now of increasing cases of the Delta variant. Experts are now warning that those who got the J&J vaccine might actually need a booster shot. Some of these experts have actually gotten such booster shots themselves to guard against the Delta variant. Is this too soon? Are you being risky by basically allowing many people to get to the National Mall on the 4th of July? Is there a risk that you could be, in essence, doing exactly what was criticized by the Trump administration, creating large gatherings that are risky?
Let me first say that we have been, our North Star has been data, has been scientists, has been the advice of our medical experts at every point since the president took office. And just a few factual details. I'm just saying, in addition to what you conveyed, the majority of Delta cases are in people who are unvaccinated. We may see some vaccinated people who test positive for COVID, of course, as we know from the data, but those people often have mild symptoms, remain out of the hospital, and the best way we continue to convey to people across the country to protect yourself is to get vaccinated, including and specifically the higher percentage of young people under the age of 27, who are at a lower rate of vaccination than people who are over that age. So I would say we, of course, will continue to evaluate any steps that need to be taken to protect the public, protect the American people, but we have made significant progress, and we are confident in our plans moving forward for July 4th.
Is there anything that would change your mind? I mean, if we see a spike over the next few days, is there any chance that you could change the plans or curb it or limit it in some way?
I don't.
Especially because the people who are coming to events like this do tend to be young people.
I don't anticipate at this point our plans changing. We, of course, are always driven by the advice of our health and medical experts, but beyond that, I don't anticipate that at this point. Oh, go ahead, Jim. Okay.
Quickly, just on Israel. So
Yeah.
the president is going to be here today.
Yeah.
What are the plans? What plans do you have for a visit with the new Israeli government? Is that, can you say a word or two about that?
Sure.
And what your goals are for the visit?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me first say, on the first question you asked, we are, we do look forward, the President looks forward to hosting Prime Minister Bennett soon. We're working on a date, but don't have anything to preview at this point in time. Today's visit is a chance to recognize President Rivlin's support for the bilateral relationship and for maintaining strong bipartisan support for Israel. The visit is also an opportunity to highlight the deep ties and enduring partnerships between our nations, as well as a chance for the leaders to compare notes and consult on both the challenges and opportunities facing the region. Overall, the visit will highlight the strength of the relationship, affirm our shared interest in security and stability in the region, and provide an excellent opportunity for high-level consultations on key issues in advance of a visit we have with the Prime Minister at some point soon. So it's also building, I should say, on recent engagements we've had at a variety of levels, Secretary Austin and Secretary Blinken, as well as our National Security Advisor.